Welcome back to Infinite Geek Talk, an ongoing conversation between your hosts, former DC Comics editor and owner of Infinite Heroes in Watertown, Connecticut, Paul Santos, who is joined by Keith Field, co-founder of Gorilla Valley Games and the owner of Rat's Nest Studios. Let's listen in.
And comics, ladies and gentlemen, stop with gorillas. Stop. Stop with gorillas 100 times. Hi, my name is Keith Field, co-founder of Gorilla friggin' Valley Games. I get it, okay? Gorillas are important to me. They're very important to me. They're important to me than most people I know. But when it comes down to it, no, stop. Your cute, quirky gorilla characters are never as cute and quirky as you think they are. I'm Tinkerfoot, the snappy, lovesick gorilla. I'm Jumbo, Crumbo, and Dumbo, the main characters of Gail Simone's Wonder Woman run. Stop with the gorillas.
Yeah, I do hate gorillas too.
Stop with the gorillas and the Monty Python quotes.
Yeah.
It's over. Give it up. And there's nothing funny about saying cheese or monkey. Just let it all go. Grow up. Find your own laughs.
Well, I mean, and that's...
And the Muppets were communists. Prove me wrong. Go on, Paul.
And that's the... from a retailer and a professional's point of view, you can't market a series as this is me, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman teaming up, and it's about all the stuff you said.
It's about Zontar, the space bat.
Right. It's like, that's not what everybody wanted to see what the similarities were between the Joker
yes,
and...
But let me point out, I know I'm a hypocrite. I know that if a book came out this week called Zontar, the space bat, there's a very good chance I'd be buying it. But it's not what I paid for when I paid for Trinity. And that's why Paul owes me money.
Right. People wanted to see like Joker and Bizarro team up,
Exactly.
or
And instead we get an original character, Morgan Le Fay, and someone that's pretending to be Despero.
Oh, and that was what the original Morgan Le Fay, the Bronze Age Morgan Le Fay.
That's the Kirby Morgan Le Fay.
But they didn't draw her like Kirby. They drew her in this very.
Well, it is what it is.
It
could be Mark Bagley, taking creative license.
Well, but even her, because the Kirby Morgan Le Fay is like super villainy.
She's supposed to be a mummy, a sexy mummy.
Yeah, but this one's just a.
She was a little more generic.
Yeah,
I think that was the idea, was to make her a little more battle ready.
Yeah, but making her like a Ren Fair princess who just cares about.
It was far from the biggest problem, Paul.
Well, yeah.
That Despero Kanjar Row bullshit was bullshit.
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all. And then, the Earth 3 Riddler.
That was really weird.
I get it, man. Kurt, how you doing? It's your soul brother Keith. Now, obviously, you're honoring your gifts far better than I, but I'll tell you what that was, buddy. That was tabletop roleplay level reimagining of a comic book concept. That was going too deep with your weird personal aesthetic that you think is neat. A cyborg Riddler who's kind of nice. I get it, baby. But you took it way too... His daughter was inside a computer. What the hell is that, man? You got lost in the weeds, son.
Well, you know how you were like ranting about gorillas?
I hated that gorilla.
I'm also going to have a controversial... I'm done, I think, with Earth 3 because it stems out
I never thought I could agree with you, but it's true.
But it stems from, like, I'm done with evil versions of characters. Like, I'm done.
I'll never be done with evil versions of characters. Venom is my waifu.
No, but, like, that's not an evil version.
I know, I'm just making my point broadly. Yeah, but on the subject of the crime syndicate, I am 150% behind you.
Like, I'm done.
My heart broke when they died during the crisis, but you know what happens then? You leave them the F dead.
I thought
Of course, Morrison's thing was genius.
Great.
But that should have been it. It shouldn't have continued past that point.
And even with Forever Evil,
and Forever Evil is fine, but this weird, wet way their continuity is unfolded. They have been killed and unkilled so many times in the past 5 years, much less the past 10, because creators went the wrong way with them, including Kurt B. during Trinity.
Right.
That as the narrative of the universe changes, they change entirely too. That they, are getting rebooted mid-issue. Don't use them to tell your stupid meta bull crap. Just give me a straight story about an evil Batman.
And even that is like, they're not evil versions of the DC characters, right? They're evil archetypes. Because that's how evil Clark Kent.
I will have you know that in the KDCU, Keith's DC universe, the crime syndicate is made up of that world's evil counterpoints of each of the members of the Justice League. So for example, the Wrath, the evil Batman, is the evil Batman. Because I like that much better than, I'm Zonto the Batman at this stage, narratively, than I used to the sweet innocence of Owlman. I think that it was cool that they died in the crisis for the very reasons that I rail about the modern age.
Right, but, like, I don't need to see, like, because they're just basically evil supervillains.
I don't have to see them reimagined.
Right.
You know that now this one's the thrash metal Johnny Quick, and now this is the pansexual Eskimo,
or even like do you know how many
Superwoman.
Not counting Jessica Cruz. Do you know how many Power Rings there have been?
Exactly.
There's been a million. There's been 2.
Exactly.
There's been 2 Jon Stewart Power Rings.
You know what's cool though? Everything that Johns did with them post Forever Evil.
Right.
Because I love the idea of them piecing themselves back together. And it's like, no, look, they really are the shitty Justice League.
Right.
That like now, this one's a vampire and this one's gross.
But I'm done with it.
I think that's neat.
Yeah.
Don't then reboot them and have them restart entirely new. Though I will say the little bit of modern gravitas that's been gotten out of those characters was when your boys' metal tie-in came out in which an evil baby Batman was fighting against Owlman.
Oh.
It was a cool one-shot,
Yeah.
and it starred Jon Stewart, and it was about the shitty hand that the crime syndicate have gotten.
Yeah.
And Owlman is like, yeah, go ahead and reboot our world. It doesn't matter. I always come back.
Oh, I do
because
remember
my
that.
ego is so strong, I realize you can rewrite my history. It doesn't matter. When everybody else comes back, I'm the strongest personality, so I always reboot more or less the same.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that's it. Please never tell another story. Was it Tinian that wrote that?
James Tynion. Yeah.
Because I got, however you say his name, because
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, if that's the case, that's the last story we need about the crime syndicate. That was it. That's the last note to hit. Mazel tov.
I'm sure you'll see them in the first year.
Of course, I'm
the
sure they've already...
rebooting.
No, they've already had a miniseries since then. They've been fighting Starro.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been a big part of the Suicide Squad corner of the universe, which, let me say, even though I agree with you 100%, the whole thing that recently wrapped up with the War for Earth 3, as we said last week, really good stuff.
Oh, yeah, I like that a lot.
Who's this guy writing the Suicide Squad the past couple of years? I don't want to have to research his name like we did poor Mr. Schnick.
Unfortunately, Tim Sheridan. That sounds right. Tim Sheridan.
Well, man, who we're calling Tim Sheridan, you rock socks, man. Yeah. It's been a really good book. When I read the words "Ambush Bug will be joining the team," I'll be honest with you, I died all over again. But then when it happened, it's the book he belonged in this whole time.
Yeah.
It's been finally a modern fit for the character. That alone is such a gift to your corporate masters. They better be treating you nice. That's what I'm here to say.
I think he's writing some. Well, so part of Dark Crisis, I think we talked about this last episode, is there's going to be a lot of tie-ins, like one-shots and miniseries, and some of them look very promising. Some of them do not.
Sure.
But I think he's been given a high-profile book that I'm blanking on.
Well, because we've spent a lot of time now talking about almost 2 brief pauses of Kronos' heart, i.e. episodes. Talking about DC, its crises and its reboots, and we've kind of established what we would do reboot timing wise. Do we have any scoops at this point about the directions that any of this stuff is going specifically in? Because at this point, I don't think we really do we?
The book doesn't come out until first week of June. That's the first issue.
Right. Because I've heard nothing.
Because
nothing at all
it's only
about the plan.
It's going to end in December. That's why.
Right.
It's way too. From a comic book publishing point of view, we're in May. The public.
Do we at least have a sense of where the wind is blowing on this topic of whereabouts narratively the wind is even being torn or considered to blow?
Well, there's a Young Justice book coming out, and it looks just like the Peter David book. So I think they're going...
I think that is... This is exactly what I'm talking about.
And they've talked about Batman and Superman World's Finest also being an example of what they want to get back to.
I was going to point out the one thing I've encountered researching this point, because yes, believe it or not, I do a mild amount of research between our breaths, was the event book that Mark Waid is apparently doing of Batman versus Robin that is coming out of the World's Finest.
Yes, but I think that's...
And I specifically was able to confirm in modern continuity.
Yes.
And that it ties to the events of the other book, which allays any last-minute concern I had as to whether or not this is being treated as in continuity. I'm going to call now that I now have come closer to Paul's belief that the spirit we see in that wonderful book that Wade is putting out is generally what we're going to hopefully see up on the screen,
right,
quote unquote, when this reboot has happened.
Right.
So, and I think that these are all pretty good indicators that that's where we're headed. The only other thing I've heard with increased certainty is that Wally will be the Flash coming out of the event. And I don't know where people are getting that information from. I'm here to tell you, as I said in our very first record, I am totally fine with that. But I don't know that I'm willing to say that's definite at this point.
I saw Bleeding Cool said something about Jon Stewart was going to be the only Green Lantern too, and I'm like, I'm not willing to
accept that yet.
I don't think that's happening either. I think that's
the stuff about him being kind of a new character, or how Green Lantern. Well, I suppose we're not giving these slivers of information enough credit. I suppose they are things not everybody knows about.
Right.
But there is promotional stuff that would seem to indicate Jon Stewart's power set and philosophy are changing following the new event.
Yeah, they're giving him. If you read the '90s series Mosaic, where the Guardians were saying, "Hey, listen, something weird is happening with you, where you're evolving with the ring."
Right.
And that storyline was dropped because Hal went crazy and
Right.
But they're finally...
That was a prime example of the kinds of stories that were going on when the franchise was considered to be in stasis.
Right. Now,
even though they're really good stories.
Yeah. Now, are they rushing to this? Yes.
Many of which we can never reprint again.
Right. Are they rushing into this? Yes. Do I mind them changing his... No, because I think Jon Stewart could go from... Just turn him into something else at this point. You make him he'd still be part of the Green Lantern.
Paul, because we got there organically, and we will go back to this very thrust because obviously it's an interesting subject, but it goes along with just the idea of reboots and all that. I will make an admission to you, my friend. I don't think this has ever come up, ironically or interestingly, I suppose. I would take every Green Lantern ring away from everyone born on Earth except for Hal Jordan. Everyone else can do something, but I would take them away and never give them back ever.
I'm not 100% opposed to that.
I've never come out on my side of history with no animus. Let me state for the curious, that is where I stand.
Now,
I say give every friggin' alien as many rings as you want, but Earth should only have one at a time. And if those people back each other up, if they're a team in armor, or with alternate power sets that back up Green Lantern, just like Batman has the Batman family, then I think we're living in the best possible version of the DC universe.
And I've said that for a while. Turn Jon Stewart into Dark Star, turn Guy Gardner into Warrior.
Yeah, do that, but don't put weapons in his skin. I say you give him 2 big boxing gloves that shoot waves of concussion force.
Yeah, and
that's what he needs.
So I don't agree with that, but
of course you do. Yeah, don't put on this cheek for the cameras.
The problem is that you don't know.
He taught boxing and gymnastics in a high school.
Well, I also
so gym teacher. Then it goes with the whole sports theme.
I will say, too, I think they...
Then, fine, he uses a bat and he's the new sports master. There, I've said it. You don't put alien technology in his skin. That shit is gross.
Well, he was...
that only belongs to Sweet Carnage.
That was actually his DNA.
And Venom.
Not his...
Yeah, I know. Vitruvian, I believe, was his race.
Oh, so, was some awful
Some
name.
bad stuff. That's bad 90s. That's not good 90s. Jon Stewart, he can... go be a construction worker.
No, he's gonna be a god.
No, he would be the Dark Star.
Yeah.
And then Kyle can do any one of the 50 things they've tried to do with Kyle. He can have a magic ball and call himself Glowbug. I don't know. Well, Ion, that was it.
Yeah, I hate
that was the name I missed.
I hate that name so much.
So the Ion power gets put in a ring, and they call him Boy with Special Wing, and he flies off.
Right.
And the world's good. I like the idea of a White Lantern, Paul. I thought it was a nice way for him to go.
I thought it was cooler when you...
But of course, White Lantern should be a sexy girl. Just saying.
Well, they have
maybe an Emma Frost type.
Then make Jessica Cruz White Lantern.
She's sexy enough.
Yeah.
That's fine. Think of her darkish skin against the white blend. That would be magnificent.
I was just thinking.
Hey, DC, Keith Ross Field here. My co-talent, Paulito Santos beside me. I think you need to do that. I think you need to change her into the White Lantern, and I think you'll have a sexy, smart heroine ready to finally hit that big screen you've been so eager to bring in the perceived audience with. And because it's going to bring us all together. Jessica Cruz in white. It's the way to go.
Did you read the Tom King Omega Man series?
I did indeed.
So that was supposed to be in continuity. It was not. This is what we talk about, too, with New 52. Like, there were a lot of books that 4 years later, they came out and say, this never happened. And in this series, it's a very good series.
It doesn't matter if the Blackhawk book happened or not, because nobody read it.
Right. But Kyle Rayner became the Omega Lantern, and I thought that was a better name.
Oh, that sounds so childish.
I like it better than Ion. I hate Ion.
I'm not saying I like Ion. I mean, that's a make of car.
Right.
That dismisses the dynamism of any superhero.
But I like Omega Lantern.
But you know what? I segued us from something because with the Green Lantern bit.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
rewind back before we lose the original point there.
Sure.
And that was, we were discussing, I'd said I would depower every Green Lantern save one. We only need one Earthbound Green Lantern. We were talking about John Stewart and his shifting power base.
Yeah.
So we know that's something coming out of things. I think that some of the talking heads, and Paul, actually, and another natural segue, because we were just talking about this before the record. Some of the talking heads out there, obviously to create content, you're chasing wisps of rumors. But one of my things is any wisp that we're carrying, we're going to let you know it's just a wisp, just like we just did about John Stewart.
Right.
I think that it's, I suppose, ultimately a question of responsibility or just choice of aesthetic or, I don't know, one of a dozen other things that a lot of other folks don't. I'm not saying that makes us the better brand of Band-Aid, but I wish places would, because the just tinny uselessness of a lot of this white noise that results from guessing is maddening to me.
Right.
So when you have a thing, let's just say it's like Bleeding Cool, but certainly Bleeding Cool never does that. You start with the wisp that is John Stewart's power base is shifting. And then it's like you run it through a bot to determine what the most credible indicator then is that of where we're heading down the line. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
No one should have to tell you that's not how the industry works.
And for the record, I don't think he's going to end up with the new. I don't think John Stewart's going to end up being the only Green Lantern.
Of course not.
I don't think that's happening.
But again, it shows the intrinsic flaw in the need to create constant material, constant content.
Yeah.
There's a changing face of media, and I suppose in our own little corner, we're part of it. Given the ability now of individuals to become talking heads of varying levels of intimacy or involvement or interest in this blanketed network that we talk about, the world of the geek, or I prefer to simply call it capital T, capital G, the genre, just that which any of us would be interested in, that would lead you to want to listen to something called Infinite Geek Talk. Even though I think Paul and I are the least geeky people I know.
I would agree.
Certainly. Those Lego sets that I just picked up this afternoon and gave you a long and rambling aside about certainly does not indicate that the word geek can be hung about this ever-shrinking throat.
Right.
It's so delightful as I wither away. So, that having been said, I can't help but feel, and we were talking about this before we sat down, there seems to be a new, almost enraged urgency in a lot of the talking heads. And by talking heads, I specifically tend to consume more like YouTube and streamer material than podcasts myself. I don't know about you.
No, me too. I don't listen to. I listen to more gaming podcasts just because it's the only way I keep up with
myself
video
as
games,
well.
video games.
Myself as well. And believe it or not, and this is something we'll talk about at some point. Mostly video games myself. I don't watch any tabletop gaming related to any of it. It doesn't.
And
play.
then I watch YouTube.
Hi, I'm tabletop game designer Keith Field. This is one of my truths. So lots of video game content. I believe in Asmongold. That's right, people. That's the sign of history that old Keith is on. I believe in big dick damage popping off. That is perhaps the most sordid thing I have ever said on our podcast. A reference, of course, to the loyalty oaths of the mighty Asmongold Empire.
Is that what that is? I did not know.
Yes, that's where it comes from.
Okay.
That's what is the nest. So, but at any rate, point made that I too enjoy and understand this modern landscape of entertainment, and I draw from it myself. It's why I don't subscribe to regular cable television anymore. I just watch streamers. I just watch content creators, and very few of which are salacious in nature. And so, you gotta have stories and clickbait and all the rest of it. I just wish there was something even... I wish there was a worm at the end of the hook to bring you in. Sometimes it feels like the illusion of a worm is crafted. Now, case in point. Creator with a site who was industry adjacent, more so than a lot of the snarling would-be leaks of the world, who seemed like he had people behind him. So that's my thing. Understand Keith's level of accessibility. Mm-hmm. I don't claim to have a foot and a half in the industry, but I will say that I have quite a few toes in the industry. And so with that level of intimacy, I look for creators who have more skin in the game than I do. So I'm not going to watch some kid who's, sitting around talking about his opinions about Aquaman. I want to know the kid who potentially knows something, who knows somebody about Aquaman. Or at least shares my opinion about the core concepts. And those are rare. For the most part, I just want to hear what's going on in the world, more so than field community speak. And so when you listen to that creator, okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. When he puts up a wall of clickbait that once clicked on does not reveal what was pictured on that wall, you're engaging in the basest form of scammery. You are dead to me now, shot into the sun. And it feels like more and more there is an increasing narrative of manipulation going on. I'm finding that the folks are so starving for news. And there is no better example of what I'm kind of dithering around than folks looking for Easter eggs where there are none. It's become an epidemic, Paul.
In comics or
in the movies and in the comics and just in the world in general, for books to be choreographing long-term plots because of this panel and that when it's obviously not the case. You're looking for an urgency in every moment of a book, movie, or television show. That's why I prefaced with genre rather than just books. That simply don't exist. This stuff is coming up within months. It's not coming up within years. These are not the long-wrought plans of Martian villains. These are immediate reactions to need.
We're only talking about comic book Easter eggs, right?
I said everything.
Everything?
I'm talking about in the context of creators fishing through, trying to see moves that have not been telegraphed.
Well, I heard that Mephisto is in Thor: Love and Thunder.
See, just like that. A perfect example of what's wrong with that emergent media.
I know that's a joke I just made, but ever since WandaVision,
Mephisto everywhere,
every single property. I heard I saw a rumor that he was gonna be in Ms. Marvel. So that means they're trolling, right? They're not actually.
I assume so. Because my feeling is if we bring this up as much as possible, the world will eventually accept that it is a joke. Yeah. Stop. No Mephisto.
And Marvel won't. I mean, Disney Marvel won't bring him in ever.
I'm not willing to go there because ultimately I questioned how Thanos would be a Saturday morning cartoon character, and the answers are there.
Yeah, but Thanos isn't the devil stand-in.
Yeah, but he was Death's lover, and that was his base of his character. So then you just cut that out.
They cut all that out.
I say you can do Mephisto and cut out the devil.
He's just a dude.
You just have him smirk and make deals, and you certainly indicate that he might be the devil. But you never say
his name is John Mephisto.
Yeah, kind of, because that was how friggin' Joey Q when he was on Stern the day after the marriage ended.
Oh yeah.
And the news story, which I was so happy the mainstream went with, was, hey, in the modern world, Spider-Man sold his soul to the devil. Because I don't care who you are and what you value in stories, that's what the story is, and until it's removed, Spidey has a woman in his refrigerator. And I'll defend that point wherever it needs to be defended.
And we've talked.
Look at me!
I don't think we talked about this but Spider-Man.
It's very progressive.
Spider-Man Brand New Day was such a stacked deck against people wanting to buy, because it's like,
dude, do you understand? Number one, okay, tangential perhaps, but that's the point of this whole thing. If you're gonna, for the first time ever, man, just go whole cloth DC style, reboot a chunk of Marvel history, you know who gets how big that is? Curdy B. Right. Hence, Threadneedle.
Right.
Even though it's not an event.
Right.
I love you, man. You're my hero, Kurt. That's what I'm talking about. I would want that moment to be curated by a master. I don't want it curated by experimentation, by unproven ideas. I don't want Joe Q and his Good Time Boys and this guy who's a magnificent proven talent, but not necessarily a comic book talent, who are at odds with each other's opinions, being given the opportunity to usher in what shouldn't have been a moment of unhappiness and subverted expectation and falling short of a dramatic payoff it should have been a unique moment that made an impressive statement. When Marvel decided it made a mistake, the story that fixed it was a beautiful story of hope. And I could tell you 15 stories of hope without boring the audience that could have undone the marriage.
Right. And it was also...
You're rebooting Marvel history for the first time. When you decide for reboot, it should have been Marvel's reboot, and it should have been the coolest reboot. And also... should have shown the industry how to reboot history.
And even like...
Mephisto, come on!
Even story-wise, too, that whole Mephisto getting rid of the marriage thing, there are so many in-story mechanisms that would prevent that from happening.
This very interesting tangent we've come upon. For the sake of those of you who are not familiar with it, we're going to pause and explain it to you all. Back in the 1980s, there was an event at Shea Stadium. That's right, Paul. Without even meaning to, we're going to discuss the Spider-Man marriage tonight. There was a marriage. It was I'm gay. In baseball, what is the halfway point of a league game called?
The seventh inning stretch.
It was at any rate.
I mean, that's
was
what
it the World Series? Am I so detached from the world?
It's the seventh inning stretch. Yeah.
I am doing my people no favors.
But that's what he's talking
yes,
about.
That's where I went. What I should have said was it was part of like the World Series or something. It was a big event. I don't know. It's baseball. It's all filthy. People running. Anyway, so this event, all the world was watching it. Whatever happens in baseball that all the world would watch. There was a Spider-Man marriage at Shea Stadium.
Correct.
And Stan Lee said, well, if this is happening... they were married in the comic strip. They need to be married in the comic book as well. It's like a multimedia event. Super rushed, no big plan. It was kind of gross and went down sideways. And it caused more problems than not. Because, and I agree with this 100%, you're now saddled with a grown-up Peter Parker. And
wait. I don't agree with that.
This is where we can disagree, Paul. Guess what? Because I respect the counter opinion.
But a lot of people, and I'm talking about comics fans, not mainstream. Not one fan I have ever met in 30 years of living or being a comic fan prefers baby teenage Peter Parker or single Peter Parker over like college age married. No one.
I'm here to tell you.
That is a false. It's a very weird false narrative that all these people.
At this point, I think people will see that I keep repeating this note. Yeah. If I had my way,
right,
it would always be with Spider-Man specifically,
right.
The illusion of change. Things would change like his job or the scale of his life, but his personal life would always be challenging and gross. I wouldn't kill everyone in his personal life constantly, like every story ever. But I would try to maintain that Archie-like beat of eternity for as long as I can. And in my perfect world, would even attribute it to some sort of Captain Marvel-like, we're all frozen in time. It's always 1963 for us.
Right.
But I get that can't happen in the real world.
Right.
When I have my cosmic cube, it'll happen. But until that day... I get that it won't happen in the real world. So that having been said, that's where my heart is, but I get that nobody really had a problem with him being married.
Right.
I think there's so many cool things you can do with that, including spider babies. If you remove the threat of murdering family in edgelord stupidity stories, think of how fun it could be to watch a family age in real time.
You've been crapping on DC, but Marvel killed a baby.
I know.
Which is way worse than...
Ladies and gentlemen, long before the devil is brought in and we continue the purpose of this narrative, let it be pointed out that when Norman Osborn was returned from the dead, one of his minions gave a drug to Mary Jane that caused an effing miscarriage. It was like they were dedicated to telling every terrible marriage story you could tell. She started smoking at one point.
You forgot.
While pregnant. I mean, what were they doing, Paul?
You forgot the worst part of that
story. Many near affairs because they so hated this marriage.
But you forgot the worst part about the baby stuff. They gave them a fake dead baby.
That's correct.
They kidnapped their daughter,
correct.
And then this woman murdered the baby on a boat. This is in continuity.
Her name is Alison Mulgrane, I believe.
She was never brought to justice.
Oh, she died.
She died.
She was blown up on a boat during the Roger Stern penned Goblin Lives, or
Did
no,
they-
it's just called Green Goblin.
they know that
it was the
she-
follow-up to the Hobgoblin Lives
Did
miniseries?
they know she murdered their baby?
No.
Yeah, that's
As
gross.
far as Peter and Mary Jane know, their baby
dead
died
baby.
in childbirth.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
frigging gross. For those who don't know, even before the devil stuff or this conversation about the marriage, it was established that Norman Osborn killed their baby and moved it into sequester. From that point on, it was established the baby's dead.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm going to share something with you. You're either going to enjoy it very much or just stare at me with disgust and hatred. Myself and my old friend Gary, we were driving to our shared old friend's Dave's house one wintry night through the mountainous horror trails of the highway in Pennsylvania. We're out in old miner country. So these are our cliffside roadways with just drop-offs to your right. So you could veer off the road and plunge to your death, Hollywood horror movie style.
Right.
And it's 2 or 3 in the morning. It was back when I had my gaming shop. Ladies and gentlemen, the Rat's Nest of the greater Waterbury area that would eventually evolve into Rat's Nest Studios, which brings you this fine podcast. At any rate, I had waited until I was closing up for that weekend. We were driving to Washington, D.C. to see the movie Bubba Hotep. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That was the closest theater that Bubba Hotep had played at that time. The film in which Elvis and JFK fight an Aztec mummy cowboy. If you wonder what would bring me forward at 2 o'clock in the morning on a roadway through a mountain range in Pennsylvania during a blizzard with a man named Gary at the wheel, know that it was that premise. Asterisk, Bruce Campbell played Elvis, and JFK was played by Ossie Davis. Spoiler, didn't particularly care for the movie. And look at what we did.
Never seen it. Yeah.
Drove through a blizzard. So we're driving through this blizzard, and as is my wont, I'm trying to scare Gary as we're driving through the darkness. And I said, Gary, that sign up there, what did that say? Oh, we're passing Minersville. Because there are just these as you drive through this part of Pennsylvania, I think I might have slipped inside Massachusetts. As you drive through the spine of Pennsylvania in a blizzard on a mountain road at 2 a.m., you are driving through these cast-off husks like so many hermit crab shells upon the skein of the face of these old mining towns. Certainly the Allentowns, but the truth of them, these places that look like tin huts abandoned in the wake of some nuclear hell that might give rise to a hotel full of killer cockroaches that will one day eat Paul Winfield. It is an apocalypse, and as we stare down at this wintry-kissed, darkened apocalypse, I began to tell a story that I was sure was true. It was the story of the death of Minersville, one of the many towns that we had passed. It was the story of the miners who began to disappear after they had dug too deep, and long story short, it involved an undead baby crawling like a bloated tick through the ashen underscenes of this dead community. The children had started a rhyme almost immediately, of course, and that rhyme was a little something like this. Oh no!
Oh my God.
Oh no! Now the baby's dead.
And then Gary crashed the car.
We survived that night. But any time that I'm driving in the darkness, I am now terrified. Because whether I'm in Pennsylvania, or whether it's summer, spring, or fall, if it's anywhere near 2 a.m., my first thought is always, 2 a.m., that's when the baby's awake in Minersville. And Paul, I then stare through my windshield and I will sing the song of Minersville.
It's nice.
Oh no, oh no, now the baby's dead. So what are we talking about?
The Spider Baby. Dead
So Spider Baby.
Yeah.
I am here to tell you, I like to think the Spider Baby is crawling around in the ashes of Minersville, preying upon the meat of those who survived the fall of Allentown. But he's not. He's just been buried by editorial. Now, fast forward back to the general area where we were. Shea Stadium marriage, Stan says, guys, we gotta marry him in the books. They're thrown into a marriage. It's immediately decided that a Peter Parker in a marriage is denied many simple stories, but most importantly, it ages him. It turns him into an adult, so you lose that eternal child aspect that it's felt is necessary when we tell Spider-Man stories. Paul, in my heart of hearts, I believe Spider-Man needs to be an eternal child, as I've just prefaced. You do not agree. I will say, I will not fight you. Because I think most fans agree with you.
Yeah, because...
And so if it's about giving the fans what they want, I think yes.
And I'm not saying he has to be an old man. I think Peter Parker...
There are fun ways to have them married was our point.
Yeah.
Spider babies are fun.
Yeah, I mean...
If I don't have to worry about Osborn eating their faces. Him trying to have a three-way with the Black Cat is hilarious. I'm glad we finally got some acknowledgement of that in a book.
Oh, yeah.
The last Black Cat, Mary Jane thing.
Yeah.
It's that dream again. I love that moment. There are ways to have a fun marriage and fulfilling marriage.
Well, I think
and let me sneak in as well. I've long been of the opinion that I want Mary Jane to have superpowers. There, I've said it. I don't care if I'm judged.
There's some alternate reality versions with her.
Yes, there are, and they're always fun, and I like them, and I want that to happen.
So
go on.
I think the thing is that most people won't fight you if you say 20s. Right.
Sure.
Like Spider-Man in their 20s, whether that's 20 or 29, I don't think anybody is ever going to have a problem. The problem is this, like, weird, like...
Or 60s, and he's trading a protege.
Right.
I welcome that times 1,000.
But there's this whole, like, you know, when they dissolve the marriage. Do you know how many...
The Rogues Gallery can all be reimagined Batman villains.
Do you know how many relationships Peter had?
Ace the Spider-Hound.
In that entire...
Less than a half dozen.
They had 2. He had 2. Black Cat and Carly Cooper. That's it. No other romantic entanglements.
But Black Cat was such a hot relationship. I fell in love with her by proxy, and I'm gay.
The rumor is that the entire thing was done specifically for him to hook up with Black Cat.
And keep them, but then they should have kept them together.
But then they were like, no, we will have...
No, it's too hot.
It's too hot, yeah.
This is going to generate too much Rule 34.
Right, so they dropped it.
Monster people. That's the world we deserve. Team Felicia, right here.
Yeah, I mean, I got
times 1,000. Yeah, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. That Black Cat series that they've made the mistake of just making a series of mini-series.
Oh, yeah.
Should be a long-form series that goes on forever.
Iron Cat #1 comes out next month.
Available at Infinite Heroes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, we were discussing Spider Baby, but anyway. So, they decide they're going to get rid of the marriage. Quesada takes over Marvel. The marriage is going out. He feels that it ages him and limits him and all the rest of it. And I'm not going to debate whether it's right or wrong.
Right.
They get into a lot of conflict onto how the marriage is going to be wound out. But to their defense, I'm not suggesting he's some sort of boogeyman or Scrooge that undid the marriage. Long before him, the marriage over the course of the 90s and early 2000s was turned into the most joyless misery party ever in the hopes that the fans would start begging for it to end.
They never
Like
did.
I said, she's smoking. She's hateful. They're going to have an affair every 2 seconds. So finally the decision is made. The way they're going to end the marriage is coming out of the Civil War event in which Peter Parker reveals his identity to the world. And I'm so excited because I'm like, all right, if you're going to make change, make big change.
Yeah.
This is big change. I like it. Now they're going to have to start telling new Spider-Man stories. So that was kind of the point, though, to fool us all into accepting this. So the Kingpin of all people says, all right there, Mr. Peter Parker, think you're such a big man? He sends a nameless sniper out to go take out Spider-Man.
Terrible.
Sniper says, they're not there. Kingpin says, just kill one of them. Kill the old woman. So the sniper shoots Aunt May. Fails to kill her. She dwindles in a coma for months. That there's a series of storylines which are suggesting that Peter's trying to let go of May while he searches reality for a cure for a bullet wound. I will point out this story was already told during Peter David's Hulk run in a much better fashion.
Yeah.
And it took 1 issue as opposed to almost 6 months. So he does everything from go to Castle Doom to confront Eternity in an effort to cure a bullet wound. And it's crappy and feels like those terrible Superman stories from the 90s where the continuity would just... They would take 1 issue's worth of story and turn it into a dozen issues between 7 books. But at any rate, it was a lot of that. And at the end of it, well, there's only one thing left to do. And that's give up and say goodbye to this beloved character. And at that point, I'm like, what kind of a Shaggy Dog joke is this? That's not how it's going to end. After a few dignified goodbye speeches, here comes a weird, strained version of Mephisto. Mephisto, who we've all come to accept as the devil in the Marvel Universe. Now, I will point out there is some debate to this. There have been suggestions over the years that all of the demons, devils, and various divine characters in the entire Marvel continuity are just deviants and Eternals. Most notably deviants. Paul, again, in Keith's world, and I'm not talking about my role-playing games, but in my perfect world, this would be the case. We would not have a biblical devil in the Marvel Universe. He would totally just be a deviant. I would love Mephisto so much more if he was just a superhuman.
You know, doesn't that suck?
I'd certainly like the current Avengers run a lot more.
Yeah, but do you realize that, I know what you just said, but the one exception is Mephisto. Like all the other, like Carl.
And if you want to do that, I think even that's an improvement.
Yeah.
I think that's even a better Marvel universe.
Everyone but
if
Mephisto.
Satanish and this one and that one, if they're all deviants and just Mephisto is the biblical devil, yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah.
You put the devil back in the box, as it were. But Mephisto comes and says, okay, here's the deal. I'll help the bitch. I'll put her back together. Now, number one, I don't like this because it suggests that, Doctor Strange doesn't know as much about magic as Mephisto.
Yeah, don't get
But I won't linger there.
Yeah.
Because apparently Doctor Strange learned that spell. Didn't learn that spell. So, yeah, I'll put the bitch back together. No problem. Because, what is she, 732 years old? Yeah. We need to keep that alive. She's so compelling, that withered ghoul.
I can't believe...
I hate Aunt May in the books. Always have from the beginning. There, I've said it. I got it out, Paul. It feels so good.
Oh, my heart. That's Aunt May.
Yep, done.
Well, my big...
And I'm gonna know forever she screwed Dr. Octopus. Don't think that's not the lady in the refrigerator for friggin' Doc Ock, one of my favorite supervillains of all time.
And I think the big problem with the...
He nailed that, Paul.
The big problem with
Ock's got problems. It's that and that the what you call it, that like Jabba the Hutt giant fat woman in the VR rig. Her name was Stunner. Remember her? She was introduced in the 90s.
Yes.
That was Doc Ock's second husband. That, like, she was so fat she didn't have working legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just this bladder. So okay, that's his other great love. Then. Now, I'm not suggesting there's any problems with this, but I know there's no way I can continue the narrative now without making some enemies. Then there was a little person named Anna Lucia.
I don't remember
that. Was his girlfriend when he was or Anna Maria. I don't know. It's one of the two. She's an Italian girl.
When he was Superior Spider-Man?
When he was the Superior Spider-Man, he dated a little person. Now, here's what I'm going to say to you. I love little people, man. Okay, I've said that. Now, that having been said, little people, hello, I'm your friend, Keith Charles Field. We all know, and it's long been established, that I like you very much. Understand that there's nothing wrong with you. You're a viable love interest for any one of us, for all of us. I heart you. Now, that having been said, when you consider that Dr. Octopus's other girlfriends were a 742-year-old heart attack / stroke,
yeah,
and a bladder the size of Kansas in a VR helmet, it's not that there's anything freakish about the little person. It's just, wouldn't it figure that when it is a normal human being, it's a little person? Paul, I don't think I said anything offensive there.
No,
back me up.
I think what you're looking for is the word fetishize, which happens to many women of different races and creeds.
Okay, so it seems as though Ock has some weird fetishes.
Correct.
Might I suggest that the next one should be an actual octopus? We haven't gone there yet.
I'm sure there's an Atlantean in Namor that is...
Oh, it could happen. It could happen. Make it happen, people. That can be our first Rule 34 commission.
The thing
10% discount to whoever wins on their next purchase of $500 or more at Infinite Heroes. Whoever produces the most arousing scene of Otto Octavius engaged in Congress with an octoling from the Splatoon franchise. So that, of course, is an octopus creature.
So this entire thing...
We would prefer that it be hetero in nature and, keep in mind my taste, so maybe some of that food situation goes on. And again, family podcast, Paul. Family. No, please continue.
So the problem with this too is that you could tell that they were trying to already silenced the critics. Because Peter's like, no, Mephisto, I'm not going to do that. And
Correct.
And then he's...
That's where you see orchestration. That's where you see committee kind of trying to divorce themselves from their legacy. So, okay, now Peter won't make the choice, so it isn't that toxic masculinity. It's going to be Mary Jane's choice. And the choice was this. Well, hello, I am the devil. See, you have a problem with the old lady. I'll fix her in exchange, not for your soul.
No, he doesn't say that first. He says, I'm not giving you my soul. And then he says, I want your marriage. It is never explained. Well,
that was my point, is that it specifically is said he wants the marriage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't explained until a few months ago.
Right.
As a beautiful little character who had a divisive run, took a gorgeous parting shot.
But that
has inflamed the entire world, and that's where we'll continue toward.
But Brand New Day, or One More Day, was insane.
Well, we'll get there.
Because Peter Parker's like, no, I'm not giving you my marriage either. And Mary Jane is like, no, we should. Aunt May is 800 years old.
Well, that was my point, Paul. And she's a withered fart of an old mummy.
I don't know about you, but if I was married to the love of my
Paul,
life...
you saw how Ditko drew her.
Well, right.
She looks like Prune Face.
Well,
she should be selling friggin' Zyklon gas to Flat Top.
Right. If your mother was shot and put in a coma, and
my mother?
Or any, well, you know what I mean.
Go on, Paul.
Try to stay with me.
I'm with you, baby. You almost lost me there. The slant shot.
And the love of your life and your marriage is the way to get her out. But she's 180 years old or whatever thing, and your mom or your mother figure is going to know that you sacrificed everything for something that's not
Paul, make no mistake.
It's not worth it.
Keith Field is sacrificing his mother for his sweet senpai.
Right. That's what I mean. I don't understand where Marvel thought, and it was supposed to be better because Mary Jane convinced him. But Spider-Man is...
That's right, you jerk. You just heard those words.
But Spider-Man punched Mephisto in the face. And he knows that everything Mephisto does, this isn't a new devil. My argument is that Mephisto is not an unknown devil character. Right. Peter Parker knows that whatever he gives to Mephisto is going to come out horribly wrong, no matter what. But he agrees to it.
They've encountered each other before.
Right. It's crazy.
He knows who it is.
And
he knows that it is a, quote, crisis-level villain that he and his super buddies have dealt with in a variety of different capacities. He hangs out with the Fantastic Four, who once fought him in the middle of a Connecticut suburb.
Right.
It's not like he's meeting the devil for the first time. Right. He has flatly refused.
And the worst part, the worst part about it, and I think it's a few months ago they tied it in. But in that story...
We'll come to that. We'll get to that.
But in that story, they make the agreement where, the marriage is gone. And then Mephisto shows him, oh, by the way, you had a daughter. She'll never exist now. Bye. And he gets away with it. And for me, I know you
Thank you for hitting that beat, because I do want to hit that
because you might be different from me.
Yeah.
I do not read comics for villains to get away with stuff.
Word, son.
And people are like, well, what about
And I say that as a villain guy.
Right, and people talk about, what about Killing Joke or this or that? I'm like, no, Killing Joke, the Joker was caught. Bad things happen.
Correct.
But, he did not
If you listen to Knuckleheads, he was killed.
Oh, right.
But go on.
But, the Joker did not break Barbara Gordon or Jim. He did not succeed. He
Correct.
did horrible things, but he did. Mephisto succeeded in probably one of the worst. He destroyed a marriage for no reason. And he prevented the birth of a child. And those two characters, the last thought that Peter Parker and Mary Jane have before they go back to reality is, oh my God, our daughter. And then that's it. That is a messed up story.
Not only is it messed up just as it's presented, but if you want to try to help the cause of the creators, you can argue that means that their actual daughter never happened, and that daughter was the baby that was killed on the Order of Osborn.
Right.
But here's my thing. In the same way that I'm quick to point out that, you only have their word, the movies all happen in the same universe. So, too, is this continuity thing just an agreement between us all? If we choose to believe that that's the daughter we're discussing, then it's the daughter. I choose to believe it's not. I choose to believe they didn't even think about that baby.
Or no, he.
But at
no,
this
it's
point,
May,
retcon-wise, it has to be because I don't want to accept it.
No, they said it's May.
It's been made official now, but at the moment,
at the moment,
were they saying that was
May
the baby?
Yes, the May.
Because it always felt the opposite to me. Not that it really matters; it's just sort of a footnote. But I'm glad to hear that. It means at least that was part of the decision and the plan as well.
It's not the dead baby.
So it does remove the dead baby.
Yeah, well, no. So it.
But that's what I just said.
No,
Paul.
sorry. It's May. There was a book for everybody.
Okay,
know,
what you're talking about
May
is that
Parker,
yes, there is a character named
Spider-Girl.
May Parker, a future version of a daughter of Spider-Man and Mary Jane.
That is the baby that Mephisto's talking about.
Okay, well, my feeling is that was the stolen baby.
So that's where the problem comes in. That is the stolen baby in this future series.
Yes.
She was recovered.
But in the mainstream 616 universe, we're saying that the dead baby was never going to become Mayday Parker.
So
I think after Slott's
Mephisto said the baby
multiverse, I think it firmly established that, right?
Well, right. But so Mephisto was also insinuating that baby was still alive. So that was the
then that will
problem.
come back to right.
That was the problem.
And that is what felt like competing camps to me.
Yeah.
So there was some discussion one way or the other.
Apparently, a scryer was drawn out of the panel. If you remember she was a toddler because they didn't see a baby, right? They saw a toddler,
right?
Which in comic book time, May Parker would be a toddler by then.
Right.
And it's just a mean-spirited, and I don't even want to get into the really geek parts. Where's the Watcher?
Right.
Where's the Living Tribunal? Where is Eternity? Mephisto is not God.
Well,
he couldn't.
it was actually
crazy.
to attack it, and I don't. Oh my God! You know what you forced me to become? Literally, the devil's advocate.
Oh God! Here we go.
Now, there are actual works, continuity-wise, that did specifically state high-profile things,
right?
That did specifically show us over the years, traditionally, that Mephisto never loses. That is a tone that used to be hit all the time. That there would always be the bleed out in that last Stinger panel of, oh shit, Mephisto won after all.
No,
this came up a lot in Doc Strange. This
right.
came up a lot in like Defenders stories and that sort of thing. Back when Satan was running around a lot, Mephisto would always be winning to build up that horror factor. There was a miniseries that was of major importance back during that 85-86 Wonder window, which was Mephisto Versus.
Yes, I remember that.
And it was reflected back and intersected in what was going on in every book. And the takeaway at the end was, yeah, Mephisto schooled you all. He could pick you apart at his whim. He is the worst thing there is.
No, but I'm not, I don't have a problem with him winning. I have a problem he can't anyone to sell their soul for something reality warping.
But that's just
crazy.
The lame angle of if you're gonna treat him as just an evil entity, just a thing in the universe that can interact with this casuality. Don't expect me to care when he puts together a Masters of Evil. You know what I mean?
Right.
It is a character that does, and I think this more so is your point. You have to have rules to scale him.
Right.
Otherwise, you can never defeat him.
And he says...
And if that's what you mean by, the villain winning, yeah, if you can't beat him outside of in a literal way, then he's already won the game of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, but I don't even have a problem... I mean, I do have a problem with him winning, but it's not the winning aspect. It's his power level is not... That means anyone gets...
Nah, I would argue he is the kind of villain that could literally split the world in half and slap it back together.
But reality...
In one person's subjective reality.
Part of the reality, he says that nothing else changed but your marriage. He said that.
Yes.
So that continuity wouldn't be screwed up, even though it would have been screwed up.
I would argue that from his first appearance, he has that level of power. But this is the thing that folks who don't believe in happy hippie hokum like me don't tend to enjoy. The idea that magic is defined that way, that magic is what it needs to be when it's needed to be that, is something that not a lot of people want to accept, especially people who are coming at it from the aspect of being a superhero fan.
Yeah, but
I get that.
But if you're Norman
that is how powerful he is.
Then why didn't Norman Osborn just sell his soul to take over the world?
Well, now, Paul, that brings us to a new topic.
Why wouldn't you just do
This
that?
brings us to a new topic. So in the modern day, we see Mephisto then informed by that deal he made with Peter Parker.
Right.
So we'll get right back to that because that is the topic I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of us for getting there organically. But at any rate, they undo the marriage just like we've complained about all the DC reboots. They did not sit down to make up a miraculous Rosetta Stone wheel Bible of which stories now happened and which didn't, because they wanted to do the lazy thing and say every story still happened between the margins of those stories contextually. Anytime we referred to the marriage, something else happened. But then they decided to do the lazy thing, the bad thing, the thing that results in the constant reboots at DC. But here and there, you'll see how reality was altered.
Yeah.
So as a result, Harry Osborn, for example, was reborn. They tried to make it a mini Crisis in the Spider-Man universe. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for the same reason that Reggie Hudlin never read a Black Panther comic book before he wrote that Black Panther series that contradicts decades of continuity.
Right.
It's, it is what it is. So that having been said, a new reality results. It doesn't go down smooth. The creators decide to troll a little bit. We see Mary Jane here and there with other boyfriends. We see references to the devil.
I will say that they went out of their way because they don't. I don't think they liked Mary Jane either as a character. She was basically, she was just dating nonstop. It was a very
as one of the 13 girl waifu of Keith Charles Field. I'm here to tell you are exactly right.
Yeah.
That poor Mary Jane did suffer.
Yeah,
my poor little 11. And so this continued for some time, and I know it aroused in me this hope.
Yeah.
How did we start? We mentioned Mysterio. I'm begging the fates that this is all going to turn into a Mysterio illusion. That Mysterio undid the marriage. Mysterio's got the baby. Mysterio. We'll get back to Mysterio. Well, that did not turn out to be the case.
Well, the fan theory, too, is that Harry was Mephisto. Like, that was
the theory, but we now know where we're at.
Right. Now, because that changed a million times.
It changed a lot. So what we wound up with was an uncomfortable sort of poking at it until we finally found a tone that worked with modern Spider-Man, i.e. a creator whose love of that character and whose own keeping of the flame brought Spider-Man into terribly exciting new directions. I speak, of course, of Sweet Danny Slott.
Dan Slott, yeah.
Love him or hate him, he saved Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it opened all of our attentions to a creator who deserved attention decades beforehand. There are certain directions he's gone into with his various characters I haven't particularly enjoyed, but as far as creators go, he's given me a lot more than I could have ever dreamed I'd see in a book, other than one I was writing.
Right.
So thanks, Dan. You're good people. He takes on the book. It goes on for some time. He decides to avoid the whole mess.
Yeah, which is funny.
And it worked.
Yeah.
And he gave us back Mary Jane. And it's like, okay, I can prove we can still do good Mary Jane stories where they're lovers and when they're hanging and where they love each other. And it's not trolling and it doesn't hurt.
Right.
And I can prove that they can have a life together and it'll be just as fulfilling. And does lots of cool, interesting stuff with the character until that time is over. He moves on. And we get a new creator on the book. A guy who I think maybe carried a lot of the same opinions as a lot of us. A fellow by the name of Nick Spencer. A somewhat divisive creator on his time with Spider-Man, but one thing can't be denied. He had a very successful run on the book. And I'll tell you that in the grand call of all things, as I call upon my hero, the Ebert, to provide me his a thumbs up to the Spencer run, if I'm going to choose one or the other. Paul, your opinion of the Spencer run, thumbs up or thumbs down?
No, if it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down, it's a thumbs up. I enjoyed the run overall.
I did not like a lot of individual story beats.
Same.
I certainly hated the Mary Sue character that was Boomerang. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Didn't work.
And that weird wrap-up to acknowledge that Boomerang is a murderer. It's like, cool, but none of your other stories make sense. Do you remember when they did that? And I'm like...
Oh, I very much so as a villains guy, because guess what? Spencer's a villains guy, too. So 10 points Gryffindor. That brings me back into the side.
Do you think he'll stay dead?
I hope so. That was fine. I really liked his take on Boomerang when he was in that book, the Superior Foes. Yeah. When it continued and he was obviously this fella's avatar / Mary Sue, didn't like him anywhere near as much. Yeah. However, on the flip side of that, love what he did with the Beetle. Love that character. Not quite a waifu, but still a strong, cool, smart, modern female supervillain. One of the few. He obviously digs villains as much as I do.
Yeah.
And it showed in his run. Brought back some deep cuts, brought back other guys with some explanations that made their characters consistent. Big thumbs up, and he obviously wanted to get a crack at that friggin' marriage. As the story goes, Paul, as far as his crack at the marriage goes.
Yeah.
You actually told me what was basically offered to him. Spoilers about the Spencer run.
Well, it wasn't so much offered. He wanted to either undo the Mephisto one more day or get them married again. And
this is what we didn't pay any reference to.
Yeah.
A storyline was introduced to further draw the wedge between Peter and his halcyon past during the Straczynski run that was supposed to introduce the Gwen Stacy, the venerable love of...
the thing he fixed.
The venerable love of Peter's life slain by the Green Goblin before being killed by the Green Goblin was raped by Norman Osborn.
That was the original story.
It was felt that the rape was too intense, and so that was brought down to they were secret lovers and that Peter was cuckolded by Norman Osborn before he'd eventually murder Gwen. This union would have produced two superpowered twins that would have gone on to become essentially legacy versions of the Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
I hated this storyline beyond all telling.
Yeah, me too.
It seemed to go over pretty coldly. They tried to do some stuff with those two characters, and none of it worked. So Spencer wanted to undo that Green Goblin storyline. He wanted to undo the Mephisto deal and get the two of them back together. So after a series of wonderful little world-building exercises and a couple of not-so-interesting world-building exercises, the storyline introduced a new villain by the name of Kindred, who I think we mentioned on there, but if we didn't, maybe this is your first podcast, was shown to be basically a Marvel version of Hush, who is going to travel through the ranks of the Rogues Gallery and be used as an excuse for why certain characters changed, as a means to empower other characters, and to tell a Hush-like story in which an odd assortment of villains came back empowered and in a more frightening fashion, and also reconcile the resurrection and weird misuses of Mysterio, since the character was killed off years beforehand. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it worked, a lot of it didn't. One thing that was obvious to anybody who looked at the story is this character was obviously the burglar who had killed Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
He is covered in silverfish. This is a reference to Amazing Spider-Man number 200, in which the burglar returned famously to find the wealth he had stored in the Parker house the night he killed Uncle Ben, only to find that it had been eaten by silverfish.
And he talked, Kindred talked a lot about demons. Like, so he was definitely like
correct.
Undead. Or
we established his
demonic.
affiliation with Hell.
Yeah.
Over the course of the run, it establishes his continuity, and I really hope this stays, because this is my favorite part of his run. That many of the Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, including Kingpin and Norman Osborn, entered into deals with Mephisto as part of their origin. And this is my answer. That's why we broke into this. You'll remember you first asked,
right.
Why didn't Norman Osborn ever make a deal with the devil? Mm-hmm. This established that he did make a deal with the devil. And he did not come up with the Goblin Serum or the tech with Mendel Stromm until he sold his soul to Mephisto. And Mendel Stromm, you'll recall, at the beginning of the Spencer run, is brought back and killed off.
Right.
Even this, spiritually or symbolically, reinforces the import of the idea of the corruptive and damning nature of a deal with Mephisto.
Right.
It does really cool stuff to trade on the shitty Mephisto deal. At the end, his hope was to reset everything. He was forced to choose. And so it is revealed that Kindred is actually two villains. It's the horrible Gwen Stacy bastard children.
Right.
It establishes there was no affair. It was a Mephisto trick. And they are chameleon robots. The same kind of chameleon robots that he used back in the 90s to represent the parents.
Right.
And lest you think that we are not master storytellers, winding it all the way back to Five Below, which we had just talked about, they also established that the sister introduced in that $5 Five Below comic book is one of these chameleon husk robots. It is so elegant, it is so beautiful, and what is the final thing that it establishes? The reason Mephisto stole the marriage was because their baby would have grown up to be the greatest Marvel superhero of all time, who would have finally and conclusively defeated Mephisto. Thank you, Nick Spencer.
And it was
Thank you very much.
And it was Mayday Park. It was the Spider Girl
Correct.
from the future.
He would have melded the children, and he would have made payment on that promise that began 90 years ago. And spiritually, in that one moment, removed every last drip of vitriol from anyone who ever felt wounded by the Clone Saga. So, of course, it wasn't allowed to happen, but it was allowed to just close enough happen that it feels much better living in the timeline.
I wonder who stopped that from happening. I have my theories, but I won't say who.
Well, the little story that I got was that someone who feels that they are even now still invested in the marriage,
someone high up,
still would not let go of the fact that they felt they'd lose a little cred if it slid that way.
Right.
But I was happy when the suggestion was he basically said, pick one of these two.
Yeah,
you can't do both.
That
was the story I heard during my travels.
He went with the correct one.
And I think he made the right choice.
I still don't, and I know this is a fanboy line, but I don't get why Peter Parker had to be like, he told Mary Jane, oh, they can't be, because when the kids show up, you think they're Peter and Gwen's kids.
Right.
And then Peter goes to Mary Jane, oh no, we never slept together. And I'm like, are we just cuckoling Peter Parker?
And that was the thing, is that ultimately that was your best case scenario with that set of givens. So thank God he got rid of that.
Yeah.
Thank God he got rid of it. Because I got news for you. If Peter's a virgin, then I deserve my eternal 1963 Peter Parker.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I'm serious, man.
I'll give you that.
You know, if it's going to be a chaste thing, if it's all Duckburg around his corner of friggin' Manhattan, then I get my cake, man.
I agree.
Mofo. Now, that having been said, the total opposite edge of that coin is we kind of wind down. We're 2 issues into Carnage, and I do not regret my overpowering endorsement to it a few episodes ago.
Good.
That book is dynamite, Daddy.
Good.
Yeah, it's going to put the spot back where he belongs. Anyway, yeah, that was the marriage in short. So where we are at now, after Master Spencer's run, we were just talking about the fact that the relaunch had left us a little on the cold side. Even though they're going back to some ground that I like. It's only one issue. But I will say this. I do agree with the take and the philosophy of bringing him back to basics. After we've just done some metaphysical cleaning some bad bats out of the belfry, it's, again, a little bit of a reboot so that we stay on theme. And it goes down smooth. That's an example of a reboot done well.
Right.
So whatever they do, it's like, it's a little jarring that we're back to just a gang war. But you know what? I'm happy that we're back at a corner of the Spider-Man universe where we can just have a gang war.
Well, and to be, Batman has a lot of gang wars.
Spoiler, we're getting a new Hobgoblin. Oh my God, I spoiled. I didn't give them time to tune out.
Spider-Man hasn't had that many.
I'm happy. I always like when there's a new Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
I like it clean. Well, let me tell you something, dude. One of my favorite storylines of all time is the 1985 or 6 gang war called that ran through all the Spider titles.
Right.
And this is going to be a spiritual successor to that, so I look forward to that.
Yeah.
And the free comic book day offering, Spider-Man-wise, I only just read. I'm here to tell you, this is the kind of nerd fan fiction I like. A team-up of Ben Reilly and the Goblin Queen, because they're both clones, against their respective franchises. Well, that's the kind of story I want to read.
And so ends another episode of Infinite Geek Talk. Your heroes for villains, Paul Santos and Keith Field. Keep the conversation going on Facebook at Rat's Nest Studios. Infinite Geek Talk is brought to you by Infinite Heroes Comics, Cards, and Collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut, and Gorilla Valley Games. Infinite Geek Talk is a Rat's Nest production, recorded and engineered by Rich Johnson in the Rat's Nest Studios.